This is a Spur On podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Jack.
And sometimes Cooper.
As we have conversations with people in the Western culture, from NFL champions to custom boot makers, and everything in between, we're in pursuit of two things: how they got the way they are in their careers,
And their walk with Jesus.
So we hope as you listen, you're encouraged, you're entertained, you're inspired, but mostly you're spurred on. Man, welcome back to the Spur On podcast. I am so excited to get to sit down and have this conversation. Man, me and Jack and Cooper started talking about doing this podcast, I guess probably 3 years ago. And I know that, man, when we first started talking about it, there was one man that I had heard his story, and I was really hoping that we would sit down and have a conversation with. And tonight we finally get to do that. And that's Mr. JR Vezain. And if you've never heard his story, I hope that you listen to this, and I hope it does inspire you. Man, you can go watch his social media and check out what he does and his day to day. And if you're not inspired, then, man, you probably need to find some new wood. But, man, Mr. JR, thank you so much for coming on with us tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. You've been wanting me to be on here since the beginning of it. Your expectations apparently aren't very high. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to sit down and chat with you boys. Hopefully plant some seeds and inspire and encourage as we go along here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, I did look back, and it's kind of embarrassing. But there again, I know maybe it was not quite God's timing yet and just ours that we thought. But I look back in my phone, and I think it was May the 4th of 2023 when I first reached out to you and asked you if you'd be interested in doing it. So almost 2 years later, we finally get to do it. But man, just like with all the other one, man, I know there's your stories out there a lot on social media. You watch it on YouTube, and I know in the last 6.5 years that, man, there's been a lot of people that have given you the opportunity to be interviewed, and there's a lot of times you've had the opportunity to share your testimony. So I'm excited for people to be able to hear it. But, man, I would say this before we get to that. Oh, man, what did it look like growing up for you as a kid? Where did you start rodeoing? Did y'all always grow up ranching and just rodeo became a part of that? Or what did that look like for JR growing up?
So my mom had me when she was in college. I didn't grow up knowing my real father. Just was born out of wedlock. Mom gave him the chance. Can't babysit both of you, so either grow up and be a father or take off. So he ended up choosing the other one. He took off. I ended up meeting him later on in life, but that's a whole nother story for a different time. But so the dad I was raised by is my sibling's father. She married him when I was 2. My mom raised me. She did 2 years of college, finished school, became a teacher. She was going to college in Powell, Wyoming. I was born in Powell, and then she went to Bozeman to finish her degree. So I got a bunch of family around Montana. She went to Bozeman, finished there, and then her first job was in Huntley. So the early years of my life were spent in Montana, right around the Billings area, south of Billings area. I grew up wrestling at 5 years old. Was the first time I stepped on wrestling mats. I loved wrestling. So then when I turned 6 or 7, I guess, the dad that I grew up with, he got a job at the bentonite plant in Lovell, Wyoming. So we moved to Wyoming, which was only 90 miles south of Billings, just on the other side of the Wyoming line around the Cody area. And I grew up in Cali. So from second grade on, we lived in Cali, Wyoming. That's where I lived through graduation. I was a wrestler. I did the sports growing up, but I always had a passion for horses. My uncle, Duncan Vezain, he was my hero. He was the cowboy in my life that I emulated and wanted to be like. And when I say I wanted to be like him, I'm not joking you. In kindergarten, or maybe first grade, whatever it was, we used to write in our journals. And when they'd ask you what you want to be, most kids say, I'll be a firefighter or policeman or whatever it is, right? And I had an entry in mine was what I wanted to be when I grew up, and mine said I want to be just like my Uncle Duncan. I grew up watching my uncle rodeo. He rodeoed and he trained colts, and he was all things cowboy. So I didn't grow up on a ranch or anything, but I grew up in a rural agriculture community. So all my friends had places, but there's never been a time in my life that I can't remember having a horse. The horse has always been my passion. So we did the sheep riding thing. We had a little hometown pumpkin rolling rodeo, did the sheep riding thing and the steer riding thing growing up. But when I was 12 or 13, I moved up to my uncle's for the summers. I'd start going there in the summers and learning how to train colts and build saddles and do leather work and work. And we cowboyed around for all the outfits around there, just kind of day working hands through the summer, and that just kind of grew. But the main passion was always horses, was training colts. That was my passion. I wanted to learn how to train colts. So as that transpired, the first couple summers spent there, got the itch to want to rodeo. I always wanted to rodeo, but I had aged out of riding steers. So the time came, at that time, I wanted to be a bull rider. My uncle was a really good bull rider. He did all three rough stock, but he was a really good bull rider. And I wanted to ride bulls. So I was aged out of being able to ride steers, but I didn't have all my equipment to ride bulls yet. So I got on eBay and I'd ordered all my stuff. Mom said I had to ride with a helmet, so I'd ordered a helmet and a bull rope rather than a steer rope. And well, they didn't show up in time. By the time I got the money, Mom made me buy that equipment myself too. So by the time I got the money saved up and paid for it on eBay, it didn't get there in time for the rodeo. So at that time, she was divorced and was dating an old bareback rider, and he said, well, shoot, he had two boys, and they were high school rodeo and riding bareback horses. He said, well, shoot, why don't you try riding bareback horses? I said, well, heck, I can try my hand at that. So I was 14, my 8th grade summer, entered up my hometown rodeo. We went out that morning and ran in an old broke saddle horse, put a rigging on. They gave me the forehead and how-tos and headed to the rodeo. And that was my first time getting on a bareback horse. Then it kind of took off from there. It was, I still continued in the summers. I'd go to my uncle's, training colts and doing leather work and cowboying, and started high school rodeoing. I did all three through high school and college. Once I graduated, I moved into my uncle's. I spent a year of college at Vernon, and then a semester at Casper, and then gave her up and headed down the road full time. So that was kind of the upbringing. Through high school and college, I was still doing all three rough stock events, and I always tell people, you don't choose bareback riding chooses you. And it just chose me. It wasn't that I was naturally good. Like, I was an athlete. I was naturally athletic. But where I made up for it was my work ethic. Once I got hooked on rodeo, that's all I live, breathe, eat, sleep, drink it. I built a spur board, and I went to a Kelly Timmerman school when I was 15 and grew up going to the night rodeo. I'd go to the Cody night rodeo every day and through the summer, and unbeatable work ethic is what got me to where I was. But the bareback riding just started taking off. Like, I was okay in the other events, like through high school and college, was decent, made the circuit finals in all three and some of that stuff my permit year and rookie year. But the bareback riding just started to take off. I was excelling in that. And then once I bought my rookie card, jumped in and with Kelly Timmerman and just focused on the bareback riding. I thought I'd always come back and do the other two as well. And I did get on some more bulls and stuff later on in my career, but the bareback riding just took off. It just was the one that it chose me, and that was it.
Man, and that's really like the whole goal of this, because I didn't grow up on a ranch. I didn't grow up rodeoing either, and I didn't even start roping until I got out of high school. But I think for me then, I thought to get to where you were, or to where any of you guys were that were in the PRCA, that, man, that destination was too far for me. And so, man, that's our goal from this is just to be able to show guys that, man, are coming up that, like, hey, if you want it bad enough, you can get it. You can get yourself there if you're willing to put the work in. So, man, I think that's inspiring enough, man, just to hear from where you came from.
We'll get into this later, but that's one of the things too. Like, it's been a long time since I sucked at something. So this new venture I'm on, the cow horse journey, like, it's been a hard pill to swallow. It's been a long time since I wasn't good, you know?
Right.
And I got to remember that I got on my first bareback horse one time too.
Right.
It's like, I didn't naturally come out, run my hand in, and was good enough to go to the NFR. I had to go through a lot of buck offs, jerk downs, sore arms, all the bumps and bruises, the what fors, the try your will, how bad do you want it, kid type stuff to get where I was. And everybody sees the end result, the NFR, that deal, and that's where everybody wants to be, right? And a lot of what they don't see was the times I stayed up till midnight because I'd go do my day job and then come home and ride the spur board for an hour and a half. They don't see the early mornings at 3 o'clock to go to the gym and outworking everybody. You know, the things that I put in behind closed door are what won me even my high school titles. As far back as I can remember, I just had an unwavering want to and went and did whatever it took. And whether that's God's gift to me or just I'm too dumb and stubborn to know any different, that's just kind of how I approach life. If chase your passion. Since I was 4 years old, I wanted to be just like my Uncle Duncan. That meant being a cowboy, whatever that meant. Since I was my son's age, I've known exactly what I wanted to do, and that was be a horse trainer, rodeo, and own my own ranch, run cattle. And even though I got in a wreck at 33 years old, that's still what I'm doing.
Right, man. That is awesome. That is awesome. So let's go on there, and because man, you said a lot of stuff that man, I think we'll probably circle back to just in a little bit. But so man, you graduate high school, go through college. Did you said you did rodeo in college?
Yep, I rodeoed for Vernon, Texas, the first year, and then I came back. How that happened, I should have stayed there 2 years, but how that happened was Kelly Timmerman was an idol of mine. I went to one of his bareback riding schools when I was 15. He was kind of one of the first big name guys that I'd ever got around, and kind of gave me some tips on how to lift with my hips and really elevated the spot that I was at. So I'd been getting on for 2 years. That would have been my sophomore, junior year of high school. And that elevated that to just kind of hanging and rattling and getting by him to actually spurring him. And he was a world champion from Wyoming. So obviously he was a hero of mine. And he said, when you turn 18, you give me a call, kid. Said, oh, we can go rodeo together. So I never forgot that. And as soon as I did, we kept in contact throughout my high school career. And I'd swing in anytime I was at Casper, I'd swing in there and get tips and tricks and learn how to set up riggings and gloves and all the stuff. And the closer I got being 18, I called him. He said, go rodeo on your permit for the year. And once you get your qualifications up, we'll crack her out. So 2010 and 11, I went to Vernon, but I'd already been on my permit. So I turned 18 in February, bought my permit and rodeoed on my permit that whole year. So when I went to school, that would have been the start of my rookie year. That fall, October was the start of my rookie year. So the plan was always to rodeo with Kelly once I got on my rookie card. So I had finished school that year, won the college finals, and he became the assistant coach at Casper. So just naturally, we rodeoed that summer, and once I got done with school, we jumped in together. We rodeoed all that summer, and then he talked me into coming back to school for him in Casper. So I transferred out of Vernon, came back to Casper, rodeoed that fall, and then I didn't stay that whole year. There was a bunch of big blow-ups that happened, and then I just went rodeoing. So that would have been the first year I made the finals, was 2012.
Oh, that was the first year you made the NFR, was 2012?
Yep. I missed it my rookie year. I ended up 18th or something, I think, my rookie year.
Man, that's impressive. So 2012 and your second year in the pro rodeo, and you may have that first NFR go for you. So I rodeoed on my permit in 2010, made the circuit final. These were all stepping stones and goals that I had set, right? Like this was just my career unfolding. First you started out with wanting to win the high school deal, and it's crazy how it worked. It just each thing I wanted to accomplish, I got accomplished, but my dream was never to just get those accomplished, right? Like those are just stepping stones. My dream was always to compete at the NFR and win a gold buckle. That was always what I was shooting for. I never approached
just making the NFR. Like, I was always striving to win a gold buckle. So 2011 on my rookie card, I had a phenomenal year that year too. And then just late in the season, Kelly got hurt and ended up not going in the fall, and I ended up missing it. I think I missed it by 13,000 that year after having a banger winter and all the stuff. So I came back hungry in 2012. Like, I felt like I deserved to be there. I felt like I was working hard enough to be there, and the cards didn't get flopped my way. So 2012, I came out hungry. I ended up going into the finals, 4th in the world. I won 3rd in the average and won a round, won the 10th round, won the Canadian finals that year. It was one of my best years, probably in my career, was the first year I made the finals. Won over 100,000 at the finals back when that was a lot, won 3rd in the average, and I think I went in 4th in the world and came out 4th in the world.
Well, if that don't sum up the average, that's pretty much it. Well, let me ask you this. So what is, man, that first time they opened the gate for you that was yellow, man, the goal that you had, man, always desired to be and get there, did it feel like everything you thought it was going to?
Somebody else was just asking me that the other day. So this is a thought that's fresh on my mind. There's no words that can describe that moment. So I think I rode sheep, I rode steers, like, I grew up watching 8 Seconds, and I kind of knew about that, but I didn't get hooked on the NFR until I got on my first bareback horse. So 14, I specifically remember it. 14, when I was 14, I was wrestling, so I was high school wrestling, and that was back when it was on ESPN. And we had our first tournament was in Powell, Wyoming, and I was hooked rodeo wise, right? Like, I did the steers and that sort of thing, but now I'm getting on bareback horses. I got my first bareback horse. I got my taste of that. Like, I'm hooked. Like, I know what I want to do. I want to go be a rodeo cowboy and chase a gold buckle. So then you start keeping up with it, right? And the NFR is going on. I had met Marvin and Mark Garrett and some of those people. Deb Greeno, he was a hero of mine that was from around the area. So I knew some of those guys. So now I kind of know what's going on. I know what rodeo life's about, right? So I started following it. Well, back when the NFR was on ESPN, we had our first tournament that fell over the days that it was on TV. And rodeo on ESPN, it was always way late at night, right? So it wouldn't come on till 9 or 10. So we had to leave at 5:30 or whatever in the morning to head to the wrestling tournament, and I stay up till 11 o'clock watching the rodeo. And maybe that's why bareback riding chose me. It was just because I couldn't last long enough to make it through to the end of the bull riding. I don't know, but so I would watch it. And so it was then that dream was planted in me at 14. Like, I just barely got on my first one the summer before that, or that summer, and was trying to figure out how to high school rodeo. And I was dead set. That's what I wanted to chase. That's what I was after. I was after that coveted gold buckle. So you'd watch the 5th round and the 10th round on ESPN, and at the end of the 10th round is when they brought all the world champs out, gave them the saddle and the buckle, and that's when that dream transpired for me when I was 14. I was that would have been 2012, so would have been 6 years later, so I'd have been 19, I guess, 5 years later, 19. The first time I made it, 19 or 20. So the season runs October 1st to September 31st or September 30th, whatever that day is.
Right.
And so you made it October 1st, right? So 2012, I know that I've made it. You think it sinks in. Like, you go to Puyallup into Omaha, and you try on the jacket and you size your jacket, you try on the ring, you size your ring, you start picking horses, like, you think it's sunk in, right? And then you realize that it hasn't sunk in yet, because coming from Montana or Wyoming to Vegas, you go across the Salt Lake Flats and top the hill and you see the lights, and then you think it's sunk in, and you realize it still hasn't sunk in, that you've actually made it. And then you go to the back number ceremony, and that's 2 days before the first round. And you think it's sunk in, and they hand you the back number, and you see your name printed on the back of it, and it's all surreal, right? Like it's all, man, we finally made it. And then the day before the first round, you go over to the arena and you take the pictures, and they do the grand entry practice and all that stuff. So you're standing on the back of the buck and chute. And I'd been to Vegas, so when I won Rookie of the Year, they had me there, and they present you with the buckle, and you get to go down in the locker rooms, you get to see that stuff. Like I'd been there, but it's not the same when you're competing, right? So you're standing on the back of the buck and chutes, and you're getting your picture, and you think it's sunk in, and it still hasn't sunk in yet. Then it's the day of the first round, and you pack your gear bag down into the locker room, and you go down the alley with all the fire-breathing dragons, and you're like, man, this is it. Then you think it's sunk in, and it still hasn't yet. You do everything like you've done a million times. You tape the same, you prepare your rigging the same, all the stuff's still the same, but there's this intensified energy about that place, right? So then they run them in, and you put your rigging on one. Then they sing the national anthem, and they play Viva Las Vegas, and the NFR banners run around the arena, and they run out, and you think it's sunk in. It still hasn't sunk in yet. Because then you crawl in. You crawl down on your first one, you run your hand in, and you hear that your bareback rig, and you slide up, and it's the same feeling that has happened, whether it's your first one or the first one in the NFR. You suck your hat down, you have that feeling, and you nod your head, and I got on, so I competed at 5 of them. I made 6 of them, competed at 5 of them. So I got on 50 head in that building, and none of them compare to that first one.
Well, I think that's the way it should be, right? I mean, if the rest of them compare, then the dream is not much of a dream. To me,
it's anyway. It's the dream that you had of being a little kid. Sure, my dream was a gold buckle, and I never did get to experience that feeling, which I'm sure it's amazing. But I bet you could ask world champions, and I bet not even winning a gold buckle compares to that first time nodding your head in that building.
Right. Oh, that's a cool deal.
There's something special about that moment.
Yes, sir. So you made the NFR 2012. So that'd have been your first, your second year after your rookie year. And then, so did you make it the next 5 years in a row?
I did 12, 13, 14. And then in 15, I actually broke some transverse processes in my back in May. So I was out the rest of that season in 2015. And then I made it 16, 17, 18.
So what's this fourth the highest you finished at the NFR there? That was your first year. You said you came in fourth and went for the left fourth?
Nope. So I went in a decline, 12, 13, 14. Then when I got healed up and came back in 15, the last 3 years were probably the best I rode, but I can't remember if it was 16 or 17, probably 17. One of them years, whatever year Jake Vold made it, I split second in the average with him and ended up third in the world. I think I ended up third in the world twice.
Man, I would say this if anybody's listening, just to hear, and I know you didn't ever achieve what exactly you set out to achieve, but man, just to have the opportunity that you did coming from a 14-year-old kid, a broken home, man, to get to ride in that building as many times as you did and find the success you did in rodeo is I know it's not the goal, but man, that's a lot. That's a blessing in itself. So let's if you don't mind, let's go to the year of your accident. How early in the season was that?
Right at the end. I was on the bubble. I was 14th in the world, was on the bubble. And the last 2 weeks of the season are like Pasadena, Texarkana, Amarillo, that little Texas run there right at the end of the season. And you have to go. If you're on the bubble, you have to go. So I went down to Tanner, Austin. I was traveling with Stephen Dent, Ty Brewer, and Tanner. Stephen and Ty were safe, so they didn't go. Tanner and I were on the bubble, so both of us went. And we started in Amarillo, went to Amarillo, went over to Texarkana, did good at both of those, and headed to Pasadena. And at Pasadena is where I was hurt. So that was September 22nd, so 8 or 9 days before the season ended.
Yeah, so you were just hustling to try to get whatever you could scraped up to push you up enough to make the top 15. So what? So that night you that night you showed up, do you remember what that was like? I mean, was there anything different for you that night that just seemed different, or was it just another rodeo that you were just trying to put together to squeak into that top 15?
Yeah, I think it's funny how your brain works, right? Like I almost remember every single detail of it. But yet, no, I didn't have any weird feelings. It was a normal day. Everything was normal. The only thing that I'd say maybe I felt like it was a grind. Like I was ready to make the NFR and come home for a minute. My wife had told me she was pregnant 3 weeks before this. So September 1st, she told me she was pregnant and expecting our first kid, and I was hurt 3 weeks later. So I had that excitement, but the season was just a grind. You're on the bubble. You've been gone. Well, you do your winter run. You get a month or so kind of lull break there, month or two where it isn't as busy. And then June 15th, you take off, and you're not done till October 1st. So I remember it feeling like a grind. I was ready for the season to be over, have the NFR made, and get to the NFR. But as far as the day goes, no, yeah, it was no weird feelings. No, man, maybe I shouldn't be here. None of that. I had a colt that I had done some research on. There wasn't any. It hadn't been at a pro rodeo yet, but one of the contractors, a guy that works for the contractor that I knew, they had bought it, and it had been at the night rodeo, so it had a handful of riders on it. It wasn't like this is the first time to town or nothing either. So there wasn't any weird feelings about that. It was just another rodeo. I'm showing up to do my job and secure my spot. And that ain't quite what happened.
Yes, sir. So do you, I mean, were you, to the best of your memory, were you cognitive through the whole deal? I mean, do you remember, you remember nodding? Do you remember the first jump and where it went from there?
I remember the whole ride. Yep. So I nodded. She turned out and was like letting the air out of a balloon. Honestly, the horse just has never felt real iron yet. Like hadn't been spurred yet. And she's jumping away from my spurs, but she kind of circled around there. And I seen her heading for the bucking chutes. Like I'm going to get a re-ride, and I'm overhauling her. Like I'm spurring the guts out of her. And I'm tapped off, and she's just kind of hard to track. And I see the wall coming, and she bumped into the wall and then reared up, and I've had them flip over on me and fall down numerous times throughout my career, right? I usually can always kind of get out of the way, but the way she hit the wall, she bumped back into the bucking chutes and reared up. And when she reared up, I kind of set up, and then she kind of loaded on her hocks and felt like she jumped straight in the air. So that ran my hips off my rigging, slid me down her back a little ways. And I was like a duck sitting out of water. I couldn't move. I felt like, I didn't have any pressure on her back to be able to throw my body to the side. She just came straight over backwards and landed on my, like I kind of felt it hit, and then she rolled up on top of me. And I remember like squeezing, like I felt the weight, and I just remember like kind of squeezing and pushing, like you're trying to do a leg press, but just squeezing with my shoulder blades, trying to push her off me. And I felt it. I felt it break, kind of heard it break. And then she rolled, by the grace of God, she rolled away from my hand. So that was a thought that was going through my mind. I need to get my hand out. If she'd have rolled away from my hand, I would have been hung up and drugged too, but she rolled into my hand, and then, so my hand came out real quick, and then when she scrambled around, when she went to get up, she stepped right in the middle of my guts and jumped off of me, and that's what hurt. Like I couldn't feel from the waist down. I didn't know it at the time, but my back didn't hurt. What hurt was my guts. Like I couldn't breathe. And then you hear the big shriek of the crowd, and then it kind of went silent, and I went to try to get up, and I couldn't get up. And I remember exactly who I saw. I looked at the announcer. I seen Donnie Gay riding out there around on his horse. I seen my traveling partner. I seen Anthony Thomas there on the back of the bucking chutes, and everybody just came running to me. And there was a split second where everything went completely quiet, and like fear ran through my mind. I was like, man, I know this is bad. I don't know how bad yet. And I don't know. We might offend some people, but I swear I heard an audible voice. It's like, you can accept this as the the end of it, or you can give everything to me and you'll be all right. And everybody started running towards me, and I was yelling. I was like, I just need some prayer. I just need some prayer. I just need some prayer. And the sports medicine team and everybody, they surrounded me and started praying and started telling me to try to wiggle my toes. And then they hauled me over to the sports med trailer, and my wife was at home. So she was 23 hours away back at home, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't catch my breath. And I still have a big old knot on my ribs, but I was like, I need to call my wife. I need to call my wife. So Anthony Thomas, actually, he had messaged my wife on Facebook. And at the time, the only place we had service here on the house is if you were right in the house. Like, we didn't have cell phone service anywhere else within a 30-mile radius. You had to be in the house around on the booster. Well, she just happened to be in town watching volleyball or something. She was watching one of the games in town, and so she was connected to that Wi-Fi. So the messenger ding said, "Hey, JR's been hurt really bad. You need to call him." So they called me. I remember talking to her. "Hey, I'm hurt. It's pretty bad. I think they're going to fly me to the hospital, and I'll keep you posted." And she broke down. She was freaking out, and but I heard them. I heard the helicopter land, and they weren't worried. I'm guessing. I never heard them say he's paralyzed, but I knew when they're telling me to wiggle my toes, I couldn't feel my toes. So it's like, wiggle your right toe. I'm trying and I can't feel it, right? And they're like, all right, wiggle your left toe. I'm trying and I can't feel it. But I don't know how bad it is. They're not saying, oh, it ain't wiggling, try harder, Like, I think they knew, but I had no idea. And then I'm just like, I got to get something in me. This is the worst pain I've been in. I can't breathe. And they were worried about internal bleeding. They're like, yeah, the back's the least of the worries. We need to get you life flighted because we're sure you got some stuff poking your lungs and there's some internal bleeding going on. So then I heard the woof, 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 woof of the helicopter, and they put me in it. And I'm laying there. I'm like, man, is this thing ever going to take off? So finally I asked, I'm like, are we ever going to get going? They're like, oh, we're landing. Like, I didn't even feel the helicopter take off or nothing. And it was only a 5-minute flight or whatever, but I didn't even feel the helicopter lift off the ground. Then they got me there and unloaded me and started pumping morphine in me, and it wasn't working. I'm like, I need more. Like, this is still hurt. And the nurses, I heard them on the backside, and I'm like any other old cowboy. I'm like, don't cut my boots. Don't cut my shafts. Was trying to be tough guy there. I hear them. They step back around the curtain, and I hear the nurse say, she's like, I've given this kid enough morphine to knock a horse out, and I can't get his pain under control. And then they must have got the mixture right, because I got to feeling good after that. And then it was kind of in and out. They wheel me to the surgery room. They do the CT scans, all the stuff. Tell me I got my spine's broke, it's pinching my spinal cord. They're going to have to do emergency surgery. They recommended Dr. Carl Schmidt. He can't be in here till 7:30 in the morning. We're pretty late now. I don't know. It's probably 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So I was kind of in and out of some sleep by then. And then I remember going into surgery. We're going to give you an anesthetic. And that was it. I woke up and my wife was coming in the ICU.
Man, well, I want to circle back to something real quick, because you made a comment, and I know where it is right now. But man, you said that while you were laying there, you felt like God was speaking to you and just said, "Hey, are you either going to accept this and let me have it, or are you going to fight it?" And so, man, had that where. So we talked about, man, growing up in a broken home and another divorce there on top of that, and man, how much your uncle meant to you and the influence he had, and the success you found in high school and the success you found in college, and then, man, multiple times of finding success in PRCA. At what point in time, I mean, was it that night on the arena floor, or had it been before that, man, you would say that you met Jesus?
I was raised right. I was raised in a I wouldn't say religious home. I would say I was raised in a spiritual Christian home. We're a long line of rednecks, and we weren't maybe what you'd call every Sunday churchgoers, but we weren't far off either. and I did the youth groups in Awanas and Chrysalis and a church camp or two growing up. So God had his hand on me from a very young age. I was saved and baptized when I was 10. Regular church attendees, served in the church young. I was raised right. I was a good kid. My uncle, who is my hero, tried committing suicide when he was like 20. Shot himself. And my grandma literally witnessed me, like he put a gun under his chin and tried to blow his brains out, and it didn't work. It came up the roof of his mouth and out his eye. And you would never know, like, other than a disfigured face. His face looks like a pirate, a disformed pirate. But other than that, like, you would never know that was his story, right? So I grew up hearing about God and God's miracles, and my grandma was very spiritual. And even though our house was broken and it was real life, like, we were poor, mom raised us young, so she married the dad that I grew up with when I was 2, was divorced. He had an affair and left us when I was 13. Mom raised me right. There was only one real rule that I remember with mom, and that was, if you start something, you can't quit. And I didn't care if it was t-ball, baseball. If you decided you were going to do it, you had to finish it. And we were broke, man, but I never knew that growing up. Like, the lights were always on and there was food in the fridge. Like, we might have been eating bologna and Miracle Whip sandwiches every meal for a month, but we were fed and we were loved. And so I have a set of twin sisters and a little brother. And so there's four of us kids, and I was 12, I guess, 12 or 13 when my siblings' dad left us. And I had to grow up quick. It was the first time I went and got a real job and got paid for a job and had money made through the summer. And there was this moment, our house burned down that year too. So there's been a lot of tragedy, right? Like, a lot of setbacks that could have kept us from going. But so dad leaves mom and our house burns down that same year. So we're in this little office. It's seriously this office that mom's renting this office. There's 2 office rooms. Like, there wasn't even doors in the bedroom. So we got a set of bunks for my brother and I, and a set of bunks for my 2 sisters in the same room. And then mom slept on a hide-to-bed couch in the quote unquote living room. And I worked that summer for a rancher, checking cows and irrigating and doing all the stuff, and had some money saved up. And I came home, we were getting ready to start school, and I go in the living room, I hear mom sobbing, I go in the living room and she's crying. And I was like, "What's wrong, Mom?" And she's like, "I honestly can't even afford to hardly buy you guys school supplies." And I said, "It's all right. It's all good. I got money in my bank account. We can use that." So I chipped in and I helped buy our school supplies and new clothes, right? So I had to grow up quick. I had to grow up fast. And by the time, rodeo was just a thing for me, but we never knew it. That was never an excuse. And mom, if we wanted to do something, she gave us the opportunity. Like, we might not have had the fanciest equipment, but we always had the opportunity. But I realized young that God was paving my path, because there was things like the rodeo school. I wanted to go to a rodeo school. We couldn't afford a rodeo school. And it just so happened I met my real father that year. His uncle was the coach at Powell. They watched me ride at the Cody Night Rodeo, and the college coach at Powell was like, "Hey kid, I got this bareback riding school going on. You should come to it." It's a $500 school that he let me just come go to, right? And like, those weren't accidents. And I realized that stuff young. So I was a good kid growing up, other than I was really hard on curfew, and I hid Copenhagen from mom from the time I was about 13. So other than that, I was a good kid. I drank one time when I was 14, and my uncle was actually the one that got a hold of me. I didn't get in trouble. Mom was really disappointed in me, and my uncle grabbed hold of me, and he said, here's the deal. It's like, we come from a line of alcoholics, and if you let that stuff get a hold of you, and he said, it's going to ruin your rodeo career just like it ruined mine. So you better make the choice now. And it wasn't a tongue lashing. It wasn't a yelling at me. It was a shape up, kid. You got a bright future in front of you. Don't ruin it, you know? And I listened. I very much well listened. Like, I didn't smoke pot. I didn't drink in high school. I didn't do any of that. I was dedicated to my craft. I had some very spiritual encounters at young ages. What the craziest part of my story is in 2011, when I didn't make the finals, I came back to school in Casper, and all of a sudden I'm rodeoing. I'm pro rodeoing. I'm living my dream, and I start seeing all these guys that I've been watching on TV and are heroes, and they're partying. And I made it my whole rookie year pretty much, and my whole first year of college. Like, I still didn't hardly drink or do any of that. Maybe I could count on one hand the amount of times I'd even taken a sip of alcohol. But I saw that. And then I didn't make the finals that year in 2011. I didn't make the finals, and I came back to Casper, and I was around all my peers and all the guys that I high school rodeoed with. And they were a couple years older than me. They were in college, and I went in this weird mind frame. Like, I was the hero, you know, because I won Rookie of the Year, and I was actually accomplishing this dream that we had talked about for the last 5 years in high school rodeo, right? But I didn't feel like I made it yet. Like, it was a poor, pitiful me moment. Like, I knew I deserved to be at the NFR, but I wasn't there. But I was the rich kid on the block and was in an identity crisis. I knew I was good enough to be at the NFR, but here I was still stuck in college rodeoing. And that led into partying. And I was just a young punk kid with a bunch of money, and I went the wrong way for 3 years. That's why I went on the decline. From 2012, I made my first NFR, to 2014. I went from third in the average, fourth in the world, to 2 years later, 15th in the world, and didn't win a single dollar at the finals with a separated shoulder. And that wasn't because my talent was any worse. It was because I was rodeoing for the wrong reasons. And I was partying. And I ended up in jail in the end of 2014. I got busted with a marijuana possession. And so I spent 3 days in the clink. And that was my rock bottom moment in my life. I had hair down to my shoulders, a great big old beard. And I was like, man, I do not belong here. And I'm doing all the things that I swore I would never do. I know I'm running. Like, I'm my mom knows, my grandma knows, everybody knows, right? And there's nothing that they can do or say to me that is going to change my mind. But that moment, I'm like, man, I don't belong here. And I go look in the mirror, and there I am in an orange jumpsuit, the same colored jumpsuit that everybody else in that rotten place has. And I look just like them scumbags. And I was like, I do belong here. This is exactly where I belong. I've lived my life right here to this stage. And God had been talking to me the whole time. He'd been trying to straighten me up, and I wasn't listening. I was running the wrong way. And I grabbed a Bible, and I was in general population. I grabbed a Bible, and I jumped up on top of the bunk, and I don't even remember what scripture I was reading, but I remember the prayer session I had. And tears were streaming down my face. I was scared to death. I didn't know what was going to happen. I dang sure knew that my reputation was gone. But I didn't know. I didn't know if I was going to be a felon. I didn't know what kind of ticket I was going to get. I mean, I'm an innocent kid too. Like, I have no idea what I'm even doing, right? Like, I'm thinking that I'm just having fun. And here I am. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get intent to distribute. I have no idea. I have no idea what's in store for me. And I just go to praying. I'm like, all right, Lord, I'm listening. I've done a lot of crummy things the past couple years, and I know I've been living life that you did not design for me, and I want to make a vow right here. I promise, if you get me out of this mess, I can't promise to be perfect, but I promise that I will do my best to do right by you. And so that was the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. So at that moment, I changed. That was my first real encounter with, like, a rock bottom moment encounter with Christ. Like, I got out. So I spent 3 days in there because it was over the weekend. Monday, the judge rolls in. Long story short, like, they should have slapped me on the wrist and gave me a citation. is what should have happened, but it was designed that I was supposed to end up in the clink to have that moment with the Lord. So,
and I think too, and I don't want to interrupt you, but I do think last week we got to sit down and talk with Corey Ross, and me and him talked about this for a minute, because I mean, mine wasn't quite, it didn't look like yours, but I think we all get to that place. But man, last week I got to thinking about, because it just been on my mind, but the story of the prodigal, and I do think one thing that a lot of people miss, that maybe you wonder why you don't ever get to have that encounter. And I think it's exactly what you just said. And it's the same thing that the prodigal son did when you read that story. But you did I was listening to you talk, and the thing that just jumped out at me is when you looked at yourself in the jumpsuit and you're like, man, I don't belong here. And then you're like, no, I do belong here. And when you read the story of the prodigal son, he's like, man, he gets to a place where he's like, man, I'm not even worthy to be called my father's son anymore. And but I want to go back, because even his servants are treated better than I am. And I do think, and I made this statement last week too, or this week in a conversation with some people, but I think the more I grow, and the more I think every day that my walk with Jesus gets better. But I also think I look at myself in a worse way. And when I said that, they're like, man, that doesn't make sense to me. But to me, it makes perfect sense, because I grow closer to him every day, because every day I realize what a wretched person I really am. Regardless of what the world thinks of me and how good of a person I am, I realize how wretched I am more and more every day. And what he did for me is greater and greater to me every day. But I do think it takes that moment, because there again, I think a lot of times we miss, man, the Romans road when we're sharing it with people. And it is, hey, first we got to confess. We got to confess that we're a sinner, right? And I think we live in a world now that's nobody wants to be wrong anymore. Nobody wants to own that. And man, to hear you say that you're standing there like, no, I do deserve this. I do think that's what it takes for our relationship to Jesus to ever really be all that it's going to be.
If I could share one tidbit from that, it would be, my wish is that you never have to have that moment of guilt and shame, that moment of brokenness, that moment of whatever. I would love for people to grab hold of it and never let it go. But what helped, the nugget that truly helped me swallow that, was in Luke, when it's talking about the owner leaving the 99 to come for the one. And that's my story, man. I mean, that seed was planted at a young age. I'd had those encounters. That seed was planted. The Bible's true, man. When it talks about raising your kids up, they'll always return. They will. And I truly believe that. Like, that was my grandma. All those people were trying to lead me the right way, and doing all the measures too. They were doing the scolding. They were doing the loving. They tried every which way, but I was just stubborn enough. I had to go figure it out on my own. But what helped, I was like, I don't know, God, like, if I'll try my best to do right by you, I don't even know what that looks like, right? Like, I had no idea. But the moment that helped me get over that was I made that decision. Like, I don't care what people think. I'm changing my life. Like, they gave me a $150 ticket, told me I shouldn't even been in jail, and I had to do random urine tests for a year. That was it. That was nothing on my record. That was my punishment. But that didn't matter. They could have let me walk scot-free and I was a changed man because of that encounter. And what I read later, what helped me swallow my guilt, shame, all of that stuff, was that there's more rejoicing in heaven over one lost sinner than 99 who haven't ever strayed away. And that's what set me on a path of really growing my relationship with the Lord, was accepting his love, knowing the fact that there's no amount of sin. The only sin that keeps us from him is what? Denying him. So there's no amount of sin that can keep me from his love, and there's no amount of success that can make me earn his love. Like, I just had to accept it. Like, you love me right here where I'm at, even in this yellow jumpsuit, and I'm listening.
No, sir. I think those are the two biggest hangups that people have. They're either, the more people I talk to, I think people either fall into one of those two camps. They either see themselves,
you can't love me.
That's right.
Or I'm not living a perfect enough life yet.
Yeah, I'm either good enough. I'm a good person because I help out in the community, and I help cut grandmama's grass, and I go to church every once in a while, and I tithe sometimes, and I do this and I do that, and oh man. He said, thank God, he said, it's not by our works we're saved, but it's grace. And so the other side of that is, hey, you don't know what I've done, who I did it with, and where I did it at. And I'm like, I don't need to, but I do know this. He said he covered them all if you're just willing to accept
Amen.
that. So, yes, sir.
Amen.
Well, hey, I know, and I don't, man, I was sitting here listening to your story, and I'm like, man, if there's ever a person that understands what James chapter 1, verse 2 and 3 mean, man, you have lived it. Man, when he says, consider it great joy when trials come. And, man, to hear all you've overcame, JR, to see the man that you are today, and to see all that you've overcome. And I mean, even beyond your wreck, if your wreck hadn't happened, just the things you overcame as a kid, and man, to hear the joy that you still have, and to see the success you found, man, I do. I also think it speaks so much to me, and this is something I hope young people, and there's a lot of grown people that need to see it too. And so I hope people start following you on your social media stuff just to see, and I would hope they would go back and look, and because it's not anything new for the last 6.5 years or so, it's been the same thing. What I've been watching and seeing is, man, since the wreck is not ever been a poor, pitiful me. But man, I'm gonna overcome this. I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna do whatever it takes, regardless of what anybody says. And me and the boys went back and watched some of the YouTube videos today of, and I'm pretty sure they were from early on. Man, where you had that hoist out in your yard with a tree to help get up on a horse, and man, was that your mindset? I mean, from the time the wreck happened until obviously now, but I mean, coming out of the wreck, was that your mindset then? I mean, was there ever a time that there was a poor, pitiful me moment, or was it just, hey, we're going to beat this?
I think right now in this moment, the best way I could describe the past 6.5 years is but God. That statement, because yes, there has been poor, pitiful me days. There's been poor, pitiful me moments. But I don't live there. I've truly, I would say my greatest accomplishment has been but God. So that story that I just told, that led me to the next 3 years of my life being transformed, right? But that didn't just happen in the snap of a finger either. Like, sure, I got the new heart, but with that new heart comes the softening of it, right? So my life choices instantly were different. I went from the life of the party to no party, and I quit all the stuff, and I read my Bible every day, and I prayed every day, and I was still chasing the gold buckle dream, but it was newfound passion. I got married shortly after that, and I started buying cattle to own a ranch, and some of that stuff, like that stuff started happening. And I tried the last 3 years of my rodeo career, I honestly can say that I was rodeoing for the right reason, which was to glorify God. But let's be honest, rodeo is a very selfish game. And you gotta do. I wasn't praying about what rodeo I should enter, I guess, to sum it up, like I was still doing me, but trying to do it for God, I guess. Maybe you would be able to explain that. But regardless, I was at a good spot spiritually when I got hurt. I was at a good spot in my walk when I got hurt to know that it was going to be okay, that good would come from this situation no matter what. So I spend 8 days in the ICU, and then they moved me to inpatient rehab. But when I have that quiet moment in the arena, I believed that I was going to walk. Then they tell me, "Oh, you're paralyzed from the waist down. We need to do surgery." Like, I thought I was going to come out of the surgery walking. Like, I truly believed it. I'm in ICU. My wife shows up the next day, and she comes in bawling. And that scripture was one of the first scriptures that I grabbed. That, hey, this is an opportunity for joy. Like, it's gonna be good. Like, I'm walking tomorrow. Like, we just need to pray and have faith. And I truly, then it just day by day went on. I spent 8 days in the ICU, and they moved me to inpatient rehab. And I did 30 days of inpatient rehab. And every morning I thought I was going to wake up walking. And I do my month of inpatient. And then we went to Sandy, Utah. And I thought, shoot, okay, I'm going to be walking in 3 months. And I truly believe that, because Braxton Nielsen was walking in 3 months. 3 months rolled around. I thought I'd be walking in 6 months, and 6 months rolled around, and I thought I'd be walking in 9 months. And then there came this time. We came back home. We got ready to have our kid, our son, our firstborn, and we decided we wanted to come home to have him. And that was a really hard decision for me. I was like, because I was determined, like, I'm not leaving the rehab hospital till I am walking. So we had to have a sit down with them. And Shelby really wanted to come home to be surrounded by family to have it. So we had to talk with the therapist, and they were like, well, we think it's a great idea for you to go home. You'll actually get more out of going home than just working with us for an hour and a half. Your work ethic, we have no worries about your work ethic. You'll probably work harder at home than you do here anyway. So if you feel like you're regressing, come back. And if you feel like you get a breakthrough, come back. So we came home. I felt I'd be walking as soon as I got home. Then there came this moment where, like, stuff started to suck. In the rehab hospitals, life was easy. Like, you knew I had a bunch of outside stuff going on, but it was all taken care of, right? Like, we had cattle that were being fed. We had sheep that were being looked after. We had horses that were being looked after. Everything outside the wreck was being taken care of. So I was just focused on walking. And in the rehab hospital, that's easy. You wake up, you try to walk, you go to sleep, you wake up, you try to walk, you go to sleep, right? So it was easy. When I came home, that's when real life set in. Like, holy smokes, I'm about to be a dad. How am I going to be a good dad? I got to figure out how to provide for my family. Do we keep ranching? Do we not? Like, all the things started to hit, and we were overcoming. Like, we set it up to where I could keep doing that lifestyle, but it wasn't the same anymore. It wasn't the lifestyle that I had pictured and or wanted, right? And there was this moment. I got on my four-wheeler and I drove up on top of the hill, and I'm overlooking the river, and I'm in a wrestling match with God. I'm like, why, Lord? I believe. Like, I believe you're the same today as you were yesterday, as you will be forever. I believe that you are the God of miracles. I know you can snap your finger, and I can be walking. And I said, why? And the question, I never asked why me, but the question I asked him then was, why am I not getting what I feel like I deserve? And that was a moment for me, because everything up until that point in my life, if I wanted it, I got it. And what got it for me? My work ethic. Obviously, we can say God got it for me. He gave it to me, obviously, but I didn't know that. Like, I recognized that, but truly what I believed was my work ethic got it for me. If I wanted to win a state title, I went and worked a little harder than you. If I wanted that pair of spurs, that fancy spade bit, and I didn't have the money, I went and strung a mile of fence until I had enough money, or won at the night road until I had enough money, and I went in that store and I bought it. Like, anything I wanted I didn't make the NFR, so I went and worked a little harder. I made the NFR, right? Like, anything up until this point in my life that I wanted, I got. And I'd never worked at anything harder in my entire life than trying to walk again. And I was seeing very minimal to no results. So that, why am I not getting what I feel like I deserve? Question that I asked, the small, still voice I heard then was, you got to trust my timing. And it was another one of them encounters. It was at that moment that I surrendered. I was like, all right, I got to figure it out. And that wasn't that I gave up. I try every single day. I woke up this morning believing I was going to walk, and that's not a lie. I tried to wiggle my toes. The right one kind of wiggled. The left ones didn't. And I got out of bed and I got busy. Like, I still believe every day I go to sleep, I believe that I'm waking up walking tomorrow. And I still work at it. I have a gym set up in my house. I have trainers. I still keep in contact with therapists. I do the things, right? So it wasn't that I gave up on that, but I accepted that I needed to surrender fully to the Lord. So I surrendered. That got me into the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego mindset. Like, I believe God will deliver me from this fire, but even if he doesn't, I'm still going to love and worship him, right? Like, it got me to that mindset. So from there, that was about 9 months after the wreck. We're talking 5 years ago that I had that moment. And there's been a lot of breaking. There's been a lot of rock bottom moments. There's been a lot of, I got to a spot where I said I didn't put a gun in my mouth, but I said the prayer, Lord, please don't let me wake up tomorrow, because I believe the people around me would be better off without me. I've told my wife, you should leave me and go get somebody that's more capable, that they can be the one that go downstairs and fix the pipes when they're frozen, because I can't anymore. Like, there's been a lot of happening to find joy in my trial here. So yes, there has been poor pitiful me moments and poor pitiful me days, poor pitiful me seasons, but I don't know that I'd call them poor pitiful me's. They were like, Lord, I can't handle this anymore. So
But I think that's the point. Like, I mean, like, and that's one of the things that frustrates me the most, is everybody's like, or not everybody, but there's a lot of people are like, well, God will never put more on you than you can stand. And I'm like, no, number one, you misquoted that verse. That's not what the verse says. It says he'll never tempt you more than you can stand, and he'll provide a way out. He never says he'll put more on you than you can stand.
I got to interrupt you. Because I love that you just said that, because I do a podcast with a couple spiritual elders of mine, a Cowboy Connection podcast. And we literally just went over this a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, but that's a non-biblical saying that a lot of Christians say. God will never give you more than you can handle. And 2 Corinthians 1:8-9, it talks about it. Paul says, brothers and sisters, don't become ignorant to the hardships that we've went through. We've been through a lot of hardships. I'm paraphrasing here, but we've went through so many hardships that we were literally at the brink of death. Like, they were at the spot of, we don't care if we live anymore or not. And the reason we're still here, the reason we got through those, was not so that we could brag about relying on ourselves. It was so that we could say that we rely on God.
Oh, that's exactly.
Those are the moments I've been to.
And at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, well, if God would never if he never put more on Matt Knowles than Matt Knowles can stand, then guess what? Matt Knowles never has a need for him. If I can deal with it, if I can, in the same for you and the same for everybody, if we can handle it ourselves, if we can work hard enough, if we can figure it out on our own, if we can handle the pressure, handle the stress, handle the weight, then we never have a desire to seek him. And so, like that, it makes zero sense for him not to put more on us than we can stand. That's the whole point. That's why he says, "Hey, man, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, I'll give you rest." And I love that verse too, because it's cool. Because he's not like, "Hey, I'll make it easy." He says, "Just take my yoke, and my yoke is easy."
I'll give you the peace that surpasses all understanding.
Absolutely.
I'll be your source of joy in your trial. That doesn't say happiness. That says joy. That's a choice. I'll give you those things that truly matter because I'm the source of them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And to me, that gets me started on something totally different, and I'm just going to say it because we can, but like everybody, and I have my 12-year-old, and he came to me and he had saved up his money to buy a saddle, and he's like, I want to get a Bible verse put on it. And I said, what's that? And he says, my favorite verse, Philippians 4:13. I'm like, okay, what does it say? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I'm like, right. So what does that mean to you? And he said, he starts telling me, I said, yeah, but that's not what it means. That's what it's on the above the door of every high school gym as you walk out, but it doesn't mean that at 150 pounds, I can go play middle linebacker for the Cowboys. That's not what that verse means. But if you read the verse, and that's what I encourage Cooper to go do, I say, hey, go read the verses before that. And Paul says, hey, I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to be rich. I know what it's like to have a lot. I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to be full. And guess what? I can do them all. Not because God never put more on Paul than he could stand, because I can do it through him. And so to me, that verse really accentuates the lack of the other. But man, I would say this too, JR, and man, there's just to see what you're doing now and to what you answered a question for me earlier, because I wondered, because I saw your leather business, and I wondered if that's something you had taken up since the wreck, but hearing your story now, I gather that that's something you've fiddled with for a long time. There again, just another idea of trying to mimic what your uncle was doing. And but I do want to catch this, and man, just to talk about for a little bit. But I do think it's so cool, man. It is so cool to me to see what you're doing now with the cow horse and the cutting thing. And so, man, even though you have had those moments where it's poor pitiful me, or God, why? I can't help but know, not just to think, but I can't help but know, man, that God's going to use you in a powerful way in that part of our culture. So, man, where did that come from? Is that something you always wanted to do, or is that just something that you just picked up? Like, hey, I can do this. Where did the cutting and the cow horse thing come from?
So yeah, here's another fingerprint of God on my story in my life. So I grew up training colts, and that was my passion. My deepest heart passion has always been the horse. Like learning how to communicate effectively with the horse has always been my deepest passion. So even though chasing a gold buckle was what I was doing, I was still training colts through that whole season also, whether they were mine or clients or whatever was starting colts. But the clique that we were in wasn't the cutting or the cow horse clique. We were sagebrush cowboys around here, day working hands for all the outfits, that sort of stuff. But we were 30, 60, 90-day colt starters. And back to the owner they'd go. Or anything of our own that we owned would be, we were always striving to make bridle horses, but in this country, you get something that's halfway handy, starts to turn around, wants to stop, and you can rope on it. Somebody'd roll in there, offer you way too much money, so you'd sell it. So I only had probably a couple in my life, two actually, not a couple. I know exactly which two that I would personally say that I made legit bridle horses, but that was always my passion, was bridle horses. The old vaquero style of training, grew up reading the Ed Connell books and approaching the horses that way. A partnership with them making bridle horses, right? Like that was always my dream. And my uncle always told me, so he took me in and taught me. He said, I'm going to teach you every which way I know how. And he's one of the greatest horsemen that I know. But he said, I'm going to teach you every which way that I know how, and my ceiling will always be your floor. So from the time I was 13 to I was 20, I would go there in the summers. As soon as I graduated, I moved into his house, and I lived there. I rodeoed out of there for 2 years. So from 18 to 20, I lived with him. My wife had a way bigger ranch than I did. That was another part of my dream. So I put a ring on it and moved up to her place in 2015. But I was still training from him. But he always told me, my ceiling will be your floor. So that truly instilled in me like Chase's passion. So it was always the performance horse side of the world was always something I was interested in, but it didn't even necessarily have to be the performance horse side. Like I just wanted to make bridle horses. I wanted to get around trainers that knew the things that we didn't know, that would propel me to making legit bridle horses. So in 2014, I was dating Shelby. I was traveling with R.C. Lanningham and Caleb Bennett, and we got checked into the inaugural American, the very first American rodeo. We checked in, and the Celebration of Champions, World's Greatest Horseman, going on at the Coliseum. R.C.'s stepdad, Ty Skyver, he trained and showed some cow horses out in Oregon. So he said, shoot, hey, let's go watch some of that going on over there. I'd never even knew anything about reined cow horse prior to this moment. So 2014, we check into the rodeo, we go start watching that. And as soon as I walk through the doors, there's fancy horses packing fancy spade bits, chasing wild cattle. And I thought it was the coolest thing since sliced bread. Shelby said, what? How is it? I said, this is awesome. I said, when I'm done rodeoing, this is the world I want to get in. At that point, I didn't necessarily care about competing, but I wanted to go get around as many of those trainers as I could and become the best horseman that I could. So I said, this is the world I want to get in. And maybe when I'm done rodeoing, maybe I can go compete at World's Greatest Horseman. Maybe that's something I'd like to try. So I didn't tell a whole lot of people that, because I'm kind of wired that way. I got to make sure I'm on that path before I tell everybody that they start holding me accountable, right? So there wasn't a whole lot of people that knew that was my dream, but that was what I wanted to do. So I had bought some nice mares. We were raising some nice colts. I was watching stuff on YouTube and seeing cow horse runs. That was a world I wanted to get in. So when the wreck happened, I had went through rehab. I spent 8 months in rehab hospitals, and that was the longest period of time that I could ever remember, as far back as I could remember, being 3 years old. That 8-month stint period was the longest time in my life of not being horseback. And we had tried. We looked into a couple facilities that were doing horseback rides for disability people, some of that stuff, but I had to have doctor notes, and I was still in a back brace, and it just never happened. So when we decided to come home, we came home on a Thursday, and by Saturday I was horseback. We led one of the old broke ranch horses up to the back of the flatbed, and they lifted me on and put me on, and I went on a little ride. And it was not what I pictured. My balance was off. I was like a little kid up there, pulling on her face way too much, hanging on to the saddle horn. I was very, very uncomfortable up there. And she was kind of antsy, wanting to go. And it was actually kind of weird feeling for me. Like, I'm not going to say I was scared, but I was nervous. Like, I was like, geez, this doesn't feel right, right? But I just took a deep breath. I put my hand down, and she went around the pasture, brought me home safe, and swung a rope a bit, roped the dummy a little bit, and it just felt good to be horseback. I didn't even know what it looked like, but at least I knew that we could figure out how to ride again. And so I'd reached out to Amberly Schneider, figured out how to get a seatbelt and how some of that stuff went, and we set it up. So I'd been riding. I'd gotten the Brandon pins. I'd go on the gathers, but it wasn't the same, right? Like, I was just riding around like a bump on lung. And sure, it was moments of happiness or moments of good feelings, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't chasing my true passion, which was communicating with the horse. I just ran around like a bump on a log and having some fun every now and then. And it was really wearing on me. Like, we were having to send our colts off to get started, and it was pissing me off. I wanted that to be me, right? And so I did a podcast with Marcus and Morgan Luttrell in 2020. And at the end of the podcast, they asked me what I'd be doing if the wreck hadn't happened. I said, I'm doing exactly what I'm doing regardless of the wreck. I figured out how to keep ranching. I got set up, so we're still running cows or doing all the stuff. I'm trading cattle and doing other work. So I'm doing exactly what I'd be doing regardless of the wreck, other than I used to train horses, and I had a dream of getting in the reined cow horse world when I was done rodeoing. So when I get walking again, that's what I'm going to do. And fast forward 2 years after that podcast, I'm sitting in my leather shop. So for the fourth year in a row now, I'm trying to decide who we're going to send our colts to. And I'm severely frustrated Like, I've went through surrendered the outcome of walking again. I've surrendered a lot of that stuff. I've really, honestly, I'm relying on God. Totally like banging my head off the wall. Like, should I keep ranching? Should I go back to school and get a real job? Like, what do I do with my life? Right. And so I go in my leather shop and I have this conversation with him. I'm like, all right, Lord, your word says that if I delight myself in you, that you'll give me my heart's desires. I'm like, the only thing, I said, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job of delighting myself in you. Like, I am totally malleable clay right now. I will do whatever it is that you want me to do. I just need you to get rid of this desire in my heart, this passion for the horse. Like, I need it to either show me a way or change my desires, because it's the only thing that's keeping me frustrated is the horse riding side of my life being different. Literally 2 weeks after that little prayer session, this fella calls me. Mind you, this is 2 years after that podcast had came out. So this fella calls me. It's a California number. And I answer it. Just says, hello. And he says, this is Aaron Brookshire. I tracked your phone number down from Ty Wallace. I listened to that podcast. Sounded like you had a dream of getting in the rein cow horse world and you had this wreck. And he said, I just want you to know that 90% of my non-pros don't know how to use their legs properly anyways. So if you're willing, he said, I bet we can figure it out. And I said, all right, you don't have to dare me. I've been waiting. I think this is an answered prayer. I would love to. I'd love to come check it out. So he has me ride, send him some videos. He says, yeah, I think we can make it work. Let's see where it goes. So I had some of my own that I really wanted to make work. Long story short, I got bucked off one day and we had family intervention. They're like, how come of all the people here, you're the only one still riding a bronc? And secondly, if you're going to be serious about this cow horse deal, why don't you go get a good one? So my pride was hurt and all the things. And I said, all right. So I called Aaron. I said, what do you think about me selling this mare and getting a prospect, one that's a little farther along? And he said, absolutely. I think I've been waiting for this phone call. Why don't you come down here and check it out? So that was June of 2022. Made my first trip down there, rode some of his, and it was an absolute dream come true. So that was the start of that ball rolling. It just kind of happened. But there was a moment there so I made a trip down there that summer, was like, I need to get one of those horses. I can't afford it. I'm going to have to go home and sell my left kidney. So let me try to figure that out. So I had a stagecoach that I bought. I sold my stagecoach to pay for the horse. I bought a horse and then things started to click. Like, well, but I actually didn't buy the horse yet. I made 3 trips down there that summer. I went once June, once July, once in August, and I'd spend a week there and ride. But in August, like, some stuff was starting to click. I was starting to work a cow and kind of getting through some of the rigmarole. And the light bulb went off in my head on the way home. And I was like, man, like, it was just a total dream come true. Just being able to see some of that world, get to ride one of those horses. Like, I didn't care about showing or any of that. Like, I just wanted to learn a trick to be able to come home and teach my uncle something. Like, that was truly the biggest part of my dream. Like, I had no idea what could happen with it. But in August, we came home and the light bulb went off. It was like, if Amberly Snyder can figure out how to win money at a barrel race, and how come I can't figure out how to win money at a cow horse show? So I got home and I went in my prayer closet and I was like, it was relighting this flame inside of me that had dwindled like that. All those same rodeo feeling things were starting to come back alive. And I was like, man, all right, Lord, if this is your will, if this is your plan, if you're going to show me a way, if you're going to make all this happen, like, what do you want me to do with it? Because I could very easily see this being a rodeo thing to me. And I don't want it to be that. Like, I don't want to become completely addicted and consumed with this if it isn't what you want me to do. But if it is, then pave the way. And I did some soul searching. I was like, I'm kind of business minded. So I'm like, if I'm going to spend this much money on a horse, she's got to pay herself off. If I'm going to get competing, I know I'm at the very bottom of the totem pole and it's going to take 10 times as much work for me as if the situation were normal. Like, I need to set some realistic goals. What are goals? What are some goals I should set? And I just kept getting this feeling like, what was the dream before? And I was like, well, the dream before was to compete the world's greatest horseman someday. And I just kept hearing, why is that not still the dream then? And it was the first time in my life that I'd ever doubted myself. Like, I didn't know what was possible. Like, I had no idea. Right. So I was fired up, and I called Aaron. I called my coach, my trainer, and I said, here's the deal, man. I need you to know where I stand. And I'm not bragging. I'm not cocky. I'm not being ignorant, but I just need you to know where I stand. I had a dream of competing at the world's greatest horseman someday. And I just need you to know that that's my goal. Like, I have to shoot for the impossible. And if I land in the stars, that's okay. But I have got to shoot for the impossible because I need to, it's how I'm wired. And I need to work at it that way so that I'll work at it as though I'm willingly working for the Lord rather than for myself. Because if I just treat this like a hobby, I won't take it serious. Like, it'll just be a hobby, and I need to take this deal serious because I think there's a work here. And I just said, I need you to know that. I don't need you to believe in me, but I need you to coach me to the same level of expectation that I have of myself or even greater, or else thank you for the phone call, but I'll go get a new coach. And he's a pretty introverted guy. I could just see his jaw dropped on the other side of the phone. And he said, well, all the vetting I've done of you, nobody's ever accused you of setting your goals too low. So just like we eat an elephant part one bite at a time. And that was all I had to hear. I just need to hear the same thing in therapy. Like, they'd send me therapists and they said, we're here to help you prepare for life in a wheelchair. And I told them, go get me a new therapist because I want to work with the one that's going to believe that I'm going to walk again. Because I don't need you to believe in me. I believe in myself. So I just need the one that's going to push me there. And that was all I need to hear, just like we an elephant part one bite at a time. And he didn't tell me it was impossible, but he did try to tell me, he's like, maybe let's not approach it that way. Maybe let's let the colts out of that mare pay for. Let's just kind of see where it goes. My dream, I know I'll get you competitive, but maybe let's just see where that goes. And that didn't sit good with me. So when I called him back, that was the conversation. I was like, I need you. I want to be $1 million rider, and I want to compete the world's greatest horseman someday. And I need you to coach me to that same level of expectation that I have of myself or even greater, else I'll go get a new coach, right? So we had that conversation. But at the bottom of the conversation, I said, and here's why. I said, getting to those things are not what's going to define my success. Because I believe that this is a miracle that's happening. I believe this is God's plan. And this journey is how the Lord is going to allow me to share the gospel and to share how good he is and to share his faithfulness. So I know that there's a bigger picture here, and I want to inspire and encourage along the journey. So I know that there's a bigger picture here, but I'm approaching it with very steep goals. And he said, just like we an elephant part one bite at a time. So that's been the last 3 years. That's been the journey. I don't know how else to explain it other than that, man. I don't even think I totally fully have it all figured out yet, but it was God answering a prayer to me of being able to chase a passion that he designed in me for his greater good, which is to shine the light, show people God's love, grace, and mercy and goodness, and preach the gospel along the way, and hopefully inspire and encourage others that if I can, you can.
No, I absolutely. I promise you this. If there's a single person that listens to this that, man, might be in a poor, pitiful me moment, man, after your story, man, they ought not have anything to hold on to. I would say this, JR, something, man, you said a minute ago, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but man, probably for 2 months, it seems like regardless of what happens in my life or the life of others around me, regardless of where I'm at and reading his word, man, everything to me comes back to a verse that I've heard my whole life, but I never really got until a couple of months ago. And that's this. It's Matthew 6:33. It says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all these things will be added. And I think we screw that up so much. And like what I've said in the last couple of months is like, I think we're like, okay, God, man, and to hear what you just said, you just summarized it, and like you nailed it. And not only did you nail it, but you just, man, you told a physical version of God living out that verse in your life. And like when you were like, hey, you said you went and you prayed, you're like, God, like this is the desire of my heart, and your word says you will give me those. But if this is not what you have for me, give me a new desire. And so I think we take that same thing with Matthew 6:33, and we're like, okay, God, man, you have allowed me to go through this wreck. Man, you have sustained me. Man, you have seen me through my darkest days. So I want to honor and glorify you. I'm going to go try this cow horse thing. I just pray you come and you bless that and you honor that. But that's not what he says. He says to do what you did. Like he says, seek me first. And you weren't like, hey, this is my goal. This is my dream. This is my desire. Let's go do it, God. You're like, hey, I just want you. I just want you. And if it's something different, if you need me to go to the town and preach on the corner, that's fine. But just give me that desire, because I just want you. But when you do it the way that his word says, just like you described you doing and going and getting alone and being like, God, I want you. And if this is a desire, great. If not, I need you to change the desire. I just want you, and you're enough. Man, just to see him be true to his word, like there again, like that to me is worth the whole podcast. Like to hear, it's I love to hear all the adversity you came over, but man, overcame, and that you were able to rise above because of him. And man, I want to say this before I forget, because there's been about 3 times that I think we missed this, and I heard this one of the very first times I heard your story. I thought, man, in the midst of all of this, how good is God? Because at the end of the day, man, to find out that your wife was pregnant 3 weeks before, and there again, if I'm going to believe his word, and then God says that God is all knowing, and so he knew what was coming. Not that he caused it, but he knew what was coming. And for him to bless you with that little boy, before that, just, man, speaks of how much he loves you. And I need people to hear that, because there's nothing proprietary about JR, because he said, man, that he came to save us all, and he desires to love all of us. And so, man, I just think there's so many people out there missing it, because their life is not in the direction yours is, and what you're doing, and that's seeking him first. And so, man, I just thank you so much, dude, for, man, your time and your story, dude.
You want to get deep?
Come on with it.
God is talking all the time. He's speaking to us. It's whether we tune our ear to hear him, right? So literally, right before I got hurt, my wife and I were doing these Bible studies on YouVersion Bible app, right? And we were going through this deal. Like, she would pick one, I'd pick one. She would pick one, I'd pick one. We'd been doing this the whole year. In August, she picked a plan, and I'm going through it, and she gets a couple days behind, and she gets to reading it. She gets caught up, and we were discussing it that night, and she's like, I don't know about this study. It doesn't really pertain to us. What do you think? I'm like, I'm getting stuff out of it. But the plan literally was about love, about God's love. But the plan was about a wife taking care of a disabled husband. Then, literally, the week before I got hurt, we were watching a documentary on Netflix, and it was about a motorcycle guy that got in a wreck and got paralyzed. He broke his neck, and it shows it's a documentary on him. It shows his rehab, his recovery, and he gets walking again, and he walks the 20-mile Death Valley walk or whatever after being paralyzed. And I made the statement. I said, if I ever if that were to ever happen to me, I hope I could have the same attitude that guy had. That was literally a week before I got hurt.
Well, I haven't got to watch the documentary, but I think you you achieved what you desired to have. And there again, I think, like you said,
just saying that, I never believed that God made this happen to me. John 10:10 is the enemy that comes to steal and destroy. I don't believe that it was punishment for my sinful life. I don't believe that he made this happen to me, right? But did he allow it? Sure, absolutely. And at that moment, when I am relying on you, it's been 7 years of growing closer to him. And growing closer to him is exactly what we were talking about before you turned it on, is that humbling, and that I can't believe you love a wretched like me, and all of that stuff. A lot of people get around me and they're like, man, he's got it made. He's perfect. He's got it all figured out. And my greatest testimony and heart right now is practical Christianity. And what that looks like to me is I have had those moments. I've been fearful. I've been scared. I've been at the bottom dark pits of despair, depression. I don't have life figured out, but what I do truly believe is God is good. What do those moments do for me? They make me look to him. He's speaking to you all the time. So absolutely, that I want to be a millionaire someday too, right? Like, dang right, it would be nice to have fancy stuff. But that's never been my desire. My desire has been the horse, and it took a breaking in me. There was a reason that Aaron didn't call me right after the podcast. There was a reason that it took 2 years for that phone call to happen. That was because I still needed to be able to handle it. I still needed to be transformed. I still needed to be able to mold. So in that moment when I went, all right, God, I'm going to take this gift that you're giving me, and I'm going to approach it with excellence. I want to win. I love competing. And every time I step in the show pen, it's those same rodeo feelings. I suck my hat down and nod for 90, and it is fun and it's enjoyable. But at the bottom of it is, I know that that's a gift of God. And if tomorrow, and I know this because he's put me here, I know that tomorrow, if he said, give me that horse, take that horse and move to Africa and be a missionary, I would. Right? Like,
no, I get it.
Even since I've been on this journey, I've been broke. Like, I couldn't afford an entry fee, and I went, all right, Lord, if I need to sell this horse to provide for my family, I will. And it was at those moments that he sent me opportunities. Here, go to this leather show with some leather work, and people came up and paid more for the wallet than I had it priced at. Like, he will provide and he will take care of you. And if you're doing it for him, and I don't know, man, I don't have it all figured out, but I said at the beginning of the year, I want to be where God wants me to be, doing what God wants me to do. And right now, if that's riding my cow horse on the ranch in Melstone, Montana, I'll do it. And if that's going to Fort Worth trying to win the limited and the intermediate non-pro boxing, I'll do it, because I just want to show people how good God is. And here's the thing. We all have a purpose, and we all have a job to do. And what I think that all throughout the Bible, that Bible that I read, all those people that we read about, none of them were quote unquote perfect human beings except one, and that was Jesus himself, right? And they all failed. They all had mistakes. They all whatever, but they had a job, and that job was to impact the people that they came in contact with and show them Christ, show them God, show them their sustainer, their comforter, their whatever, right? David, Elijah, Elisha, the prophets, the disciples, the ragtags, all of them. We all have a purpose that we get to choose. We have a job every single day. And that job is we get to impact those people that we come in contact with, whether that's our family, our friends, the stranger on the street that I run into. I get to decide how I impact their life. Now, we all have these spiritual gifts, and that gets used in different ways, but we all get to demonstrate that love. I get to impact every single person that I come in contact with. So how are you going to, what choice are you going to make today? And I take it very seriously. I try to be a thermometer, not a thermostat.
No, yes, sir. And I would say this too, and just go along with that, because that's my desire too. Like I heard a guy say a couple months ago, and it really impacted me, and I would love to get on here and say I pray this prayer every morning, and I try to pray it every morning that I remember to pray it. But, man, he said something in it. He said before he ever lets his feet hit the floor, before he makes a movement, as soon as his eyes open in the morning, he says, this has been my prayer. God, I pray that you take my heart and put the desires in it you'd have for me. God, I pray you take my mind and the thoughts you'd have for me before I have the opportunity to feel them myself. And like, that is so, man, that sums up everything you just said. Like, man, just to be that, just to pursue him in that way, that's my desire too. And man, it's a struggle. It's a struggle not to let just life in general, to get there and to consume your mind and begin to fill your mind of all the things that need to be done and have to be done, and not just pursue him. But man, that's where I want to be.
Listen,
That's where I want to be.
sometimes he tells me you need to go out there in the leather shop and finish that project that you told that person you'd have done a week ago.
Right.
That might be the job for the day.
Right.
Having that integrity, having that work ethic, whatever it is, that might be the job for today. Then it might be, I want to really go practice riding my horse tomorrow, but he needs me to talk to the little old lady and inspire and encourage her and give her a hug at the gas station that I've never met before. Right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Moments matter, man. And seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. What's his righteousness? Jesus. The blood of Jesus is his righteousness. Seek ye first his kingdom. Get out of myself. Get out of my wants. Get out of my desires. Get out of what this world puts on us as humans, the keeping up with the Joneses. Get out of that. Get your eyes on the bigger picture. What's the bigger picture? God himself, his kingdom. All right. So now me as a little old human being that he wants to use, practically speaking, that's do everything without complaining and arguing. That's a hard command for me to follow. Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. These things. Be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for your life. That's a hard one for me some days. I would be lying if I told you that any day in this wheelchair was easy or fun. It isn't. It sucks, man. But I have the choice. I can go, all right, I'm still here. Lord, what would you have me to do today? I want to be thankful for this because I know it's shaping my character. It's building my endurance. It's growing my faith. It's humbling me. It's bringing me patience. When I can look at that situation that way, I can be thankful even in my treachery. And I can have joy in my struggle. I can have peace that surpasses all understanding, not because of anything that I do, but because of him. And when I approach life, last year I ran rampant. I was operating in survival mode because we were tight financially, and I just got running from opportunity to opportunity to opportunity. And at the end of the year, I get a cattle commissions check, and I got that cattle commissions check in December, and it was the first time in 8 months that I could literally just breathe. And I went, whew. And look, the lights were on and food was in the fridge, so we were good, but it was tight, right? And I know I'm not the only one that was there. And so when we were getting ready to go to Texas this year, I was having a hard time. I was like, man, that's an expensive trip. It's not a lack of faith. Like, I'll take the leap of faith. That's where you want me to be, Lord. But I am having a hard time mentally coming home broke again and having to operate in survival mode. And we had to go through some perspective change. And I had to call my coach and I had to go, all right, I don't think I need to cut. Like, I had to surrender my competition. It was like, all right, Lord, I won't go if you don't want me to go. And then my trainer called and he said, well, why don't you at least just come for a month? Can you afford that? So we did. And that opened up other doors, and that opened up speaking engagements. So we actually ended up getting to stay for 6 weeks instead of just a month. Like, that trip got blessed also. And just by being obedient and willing. And what he showed me is, if you're spending time in the Word and you have that community and you're trying, if you're having that communication, you're going, all right, Lord, even if you get to the crossroads and you don't hear the voice, whether go left or go right, when you're seeking that peace, that joy, that patience, whatever, and you get to the spot where follow me and I will make your footsteps, the light on your footpath light up. To me, sometimes that means I don't care which direction you go, I'm going to be with you in both of them. So just pick a direction and go. When you go and you let him lead the path, lead the way, it's not this successful thing that I have to accomplish. I get the opportunity to tell everybody about God's goodness with that story. I get to tell them all these other things. You have those moments in your life where you get to impact those people that God puts on your path. And there was this really, really, really emotional moment for me this winter while I was at Fort Worth. So I'm getting ready to compete. And I'm riding around in the warm-up arena. And there's 15 of these professionals that are the guys that I look up to, that I watch on video, that I try to learn from, whatever, right? And I'm riding around with them in the warm-up arena. And there's my coach with these guys. And we're cutting it up. And we're talking horse training. And we're smiling. I didn't pay for a lesson, and these guys are giving me tips. And it was literally, I almost cried. It made me very, very, very emotional, because more than the competing, more than winning the boxing class that I was entered in, that was one of the things. In 2014, my dream was to go get around as many of those trainers and learn as much as I could. And here I was getting to share a testimony with those guys.
No,
when you get out of your selfishness, when you seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, turn your face to seek the Lord. I don't care if you're having a bad day, a bad moment, a bad year. If you feel like you can't handle it, there's a story I love to tell. And it's the when Jesus comes walking on the water, right? This sums up how I am today. Jesus comes walking on the water to the boat, and they're in the middle of the storm, right? And the disciples are on the boat, and they see him coming, and they're filled with fear. And Peter says, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come walking on the water. And Jesus says, come. What's Peter do? Peter gets out of the boat and he walks on water. Come on, man. Like, here's a human being that's just like me walking on water. And he starts walking towards him. And then he sinks. And everybody wants to rag on Peter because he sank. And ye little faith that comes after that, whatever, right? Everybody wants to rag on Peter because he lost his faith. But I root for Peter. I stand up for Peter, because you know what Peter did? Peter had the balls to get out of the boat. What about them other 11 that were sitting there? What about when Jesus said, come? What did Peter do? He came. He went. He got out of the boat. And when he sank, what did he do? He looked to Jesus and he said, Lord, save me. And what did Jesus do? He reached his hand down, immediately pulled him up and put him back in the boat.
No,
Life ain't about this perfection. Life is about getting out of the boat. Keep getting out of the boat. And when you sink, cry out to the Lord, Jesus, save me, and he will.
No, I agree. And I there again, you hear that message and that story told a lot, and you're like, oh, man, he just didn't have the faith. Well, he had way more than the other 11. because they still sat there,
Amen.
or even to the fact that the other 11 were probably still thinking it was a ghost, because at least Peter had the balls to stand up and say, hey, if it's you, call to me, tell me to come to you. And the rest of them were like, oh my God, what is that deal? But no, I agree with you in the same way. And I even think it's real easy to throw rocks at Jonah. But if you read the story of Jonah, man, it says as he's sinking, what does he do? He begins to cry out, and so it's not about messing up. It's just about, man, what do you do when you mess up?
It's not about not sinking. It's about what do you do when you sink?
Right.
What do you do when life hands you that lemon? Listen, I think. I just keep crying out to Jesus.
No, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, man, JR, dude, this is way more than I ever thought it was going to be. It's man, you have been a blessing to me, and I know it's going to be a blessing to others as they listen. And so, man, I too, you mentioned something a minute ago, and I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I listened to all of them, but I have listened to several of them. Is it the Cowboy Connection? Is that the name of the podcast you do with the other three guys?
Yes, sir. Yep. A Cowboy Connection with Kevin Cooley, Tad Torgerson, Bill Plouffe, and I.
And I will say this, man, that is if you just want a good Bible study type podcast, man, they get in there deep on some things. And so, man, I'd encourage you to go listen to that. I'd encourage you to, man, check out JR on all his social media stuff, and maybe on those days where you feel down and out and you need some encouragement, go watch one of his videos. And I promise you'll be inspired and encouraged and probably quit crying in your milk. But, man, dude, thank you so much. It's been everything I hoped it would be. And so much more. And man, I just pray for you and your family, and that, man, you just keep doing and being exactly what it is and where it is that God has you.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity. My hope is that it inspires, encourages, and ultimately that it, no matter where you're at in your life, that whether you're a believer, non-believer, on the fence about believing, that it'll get you to go check out my friend Jesus. I think we all need a little bit more of him, and I just encourage people, no matter where you're at, to go seek him out. So I appreciate the opportunity. It encouraged me, it fired me, it filled me up, and I just want to leave with this. I think if there's anything, any way that I could encourage the listeners of this, would be one of the greatest lessons that I've learned from this scenario is to be careful what you're complaining about, because there's somebody out there praying and wishing that they have what you have. And that doesn't mean we can't have bad moments. I just try to leave them at bad moments. And whenever I have a bad moment, that's where my mind goes, that it can always be better and it could always be worse. So just be thankful for where you're at, because there's brighter days ahead if we will not weaken. Don't give up. Keep on trying to spur your way out, and keep seeking the Lord, because he'll put the right tools and opportunities in along your path if you're willing to try one more time. So I think that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned, is be thankful for what you have, be grateful for what you have, and don't let what you can't do keep you from doing what you can.
That's good stuff, dude. Well, hey, man, as I said in the beginning, the first couple we didn't really know how to end them. So we just started doing this thing, but now it's become how we end them. So, man, if it's good with you, I'd just like to pray for you and your family, and man, I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening.
I love it, man.
All right. Father, I just come to you, Lord. I thank you so much, man. I thank you so much for the time to get to listen to JR. God, I thank you, man, for his willingness to share his story. God, I just lift him and his family up to you. God, I look at them, and, man, even to see that little boy, and what a blessing in the midst of turmoil and trial. But, man, just to see the love that you have for us in the midst of that, God, I thank you for, man, just the heart you've given JR, the desire to continue to follow you, to serve you. God, to take the hand of cards that he's been dealt and honor you through it, man. And there's no doubt in my mind, God, that you've been honored through the life he lived so far. So, Father, I just pray that on the days, man, that he's struggling, you give him the strength to endure, to keep going. God, I pray that you would mesh him and his wife together tighter than they've ever been, God, that as a family, man, they could honor you in a way that they've never experienced. God, that there'd be people that come to know you. God, there'd be people that get discipled closer to you. through the example that him and his wife and that little boy set as a family. And so, Father, I just pray that for all those that listen to this, that all those that see JR's story, God, that it not be him that's honored, God, but it's you. God, we love you so much. We praise you and ask all these things in your name. Amen.